Hi, Councilman Taylor. How are you? He's alive? Oh, he's off.
Is Councilwoman Miller on the outside of the?
I just see that she's also here.
She's also here, yes.
Yeah, I'm here. Hi.
Hello.
Great to hear from you. Hi, Councilwoman.
We're all set, Madam Chair.
Great. I'd like to welcome everyone and call the meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please, Madam Clerk?
Sure. Chairwoman Jessica Signa.
Present.
Vice Chairman Nicholas Narducci. Absent. Councilwoman Mary Kay Harris.
Present.
Councilor Rachel Miller.
Present.
Nicholas Friedman.
Present.
Okay, we have 4 present, 1 absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to start off by just, yes? Oh, I thought I heard something. Sorry about that. I'd just like to start off by saying, again, welcome to everyone and welcome to our city councilors who are our guests this evening. It has been almost a year since we were all appointed to this committee. And we've actually done a lot of work for not having data or a lot to go on yet in the past year. Our committee has met several times and we educated ourselves on the different aspects of redistricting and why it's important. We had experts from local organizations and even from the Census Bureau come join us to talk to us about the different pieces of redistricting and why it's really important for Providence and the state. We had lively discussion and debate. We've chatted about things that are really important to us, and we've worked on a values document. We're going to talk a little bit more about that this evening. And that document is specifically how we will work with each other and work with the eventual consultant that we do bring on to do the work for us. In addition, I have taken on the advice of all of my committee members. We're very interested in making sure this is a public process and that we get a lot of input from the community. And to do that, I've gone on an education tour and I've been chatting with different neighborhood groups. And I just wanted to list those and let everyone know where I've been and who I've been chatting with. So I've had the privilege to attend the Providence Housing Authority's Resident Advisory Board meeting and talk to the residents about why it's important to participate in this process. I presented to the Providence League of Women Voters, to the Fox Point Neighborhood Association, to the South Elmwood Neighborhood Association, to the Providence Coalition of Neighborhood Associations, which is the umbrella organizations of all the neighborhood associations in the city. Presented to the Ward 5 monthly community meeting. And I have more to come. I also chatted with the Providence Community Library and sort of talked with some ideas about how we might be able to get some information into the library and therefore into the community libraries across the city to help people understand the process. So we'll talk a little bit about that later as well. I also chatted with DARE and talked about potentially having a meeting with them to have a map drawing night to help them understand communities of interest and to talk about what community of interest are really important to them and to bring that fold back into the fold into this process. And finally, last year, late in the year, I testified at the statewide redistricting committee in support of moving people who were counted at the ACI on April 1st of 2020 back into their home prior addresses. As we know, and with the support of the community, we all agree that that was an important thing with many people coming back to Providence. As we know that the statewide committee actually did decide to move some people back to their home, their prior addresses. That'll be people who were in the ACI for 2 years or less from essentially April 1st, 2020 through now, essentially. And I know that they're still working on the exact details, but that data will be coming back to Providence, and we will be gaining some population due to that. Finally, I'm excited that I have and I see that Councilman Anthony joined us. I'm going to be presenting to the Ward 2 community meeting on January 19th. And then finally, upcoming maybe in February to the South Providence neighborhood meeting. So lots to come. And I invite any council people here or anyone in the audience who's part of a neighborhood association listening, either myself or a fellow committee member would be happy to talk one-on-one about the process or even present to a group. I've presented virtually and in person, so happy to do both if we can do that. So thank you for indulging me. I just wanted to fill everyone in on what we've been up to. Does anyone have any questions about that? Yes, Councilman Espinal.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for your information. When, again, are you going to be in South Providence?
I do not have an official date. I'm working with Dwayne Keys, I believe is his name.
Yes.
Yes, yep. So I don't have an official date yet on that. But I do plan to do that. Likely.
Correct. I'll check in with Dwayne Keys and also I'll make direct contact with you so that we can set something up in Washington Park.
Great, thank you so much.
Maybe in conjunction with the library.
I would like that very much.
Thank you.
Councilman Goncalves?
Sure, this is not a question, it's more of a comment, but we'd love to have you at our Ward 1 virtual community meeting so we can follow up about that. And I just want to thank you and this committee for the great work that you've been doing in engaging the community. So thank you, Chairwoman Signa, for your leadership and everyone else on this body.
Really appreciate it. All of us on the committee are very interested and very committed to have this be a really engaged process. So please do let us know how we can do better and get in touch with all of you. So thank you so much for that. Okay. Any other questions or any committee members have anything else to add?
I got a question, Jessica.
Yes, of course.
So these meetings that you're talking about is community meetings? We have to send an invitation to all the constituents to have the meeting, or is which?
Yep, these are not. Yeah, so I know that some council people have email and contact lists that they maintain, and then on social media, they promote on social media these meetings. So they're not technically public meetings, they're just more gatherings of community members to chat about issues in their neighborhoods. And then I have been attending those meetings. So if anyone else has advice on how to, yes, of course, Councilman Miller.
So Councilman, we'll have public hearings also and a pretty rigorous public hearing schedule once we get rolling. This is like just how to engage the process. So it's like Jess has been doing all this really great community work, kind of going out and saying like, hey, you guys, this is coming, so that when we have the public hearings, we have mass participation. And I've been doing some outreach in the West End and Federal Hill as well. But that's just the first step.
It's more of a education campaign to let folks know that this is coming and that they're able to participate, and then sort of going over the ways in which folks can do so.
Thank you.
Of course. I can't see if anyone else has their hand up. Madam Clerk, do you see anyone else? No.
I don't.
Great. I'd like to move on then to the first agenda item, which is discussion relative to the subcommittee's choice for bids of boundary redrawing consultant and full committee vote for selection. So we received 2 bids. January 3rd was the closing date. Bids were open for approximately 4 weeks. And Councilwoman Harris and I were a subcommittee for this. We had a lengthy discussion. We had some criteria in which we needed to follow that were listed in the RFP. So the RFP lists several items such as previous relevant experience, references, availability to work, and ability to produce the previously stated tasks and documents within this timeframe stated, knowledge of the city and its neighborhoods, availability to meet with the community and city officials at any time, cost, and the proposal submitted, which is essentially what does the proposal overall contain. So those items were what we were, that's listed on, that's the criteria listed on page 18 of RFP that we are to use when we make the subcommittee selection. Councilwoman Harris and I both reviewed each RFP, and we spent a lot of time talking about what we thought based on these items. And we have decided that the bid from Election Data Services is the superior bid. That's the bid that we would like to go with. And I'll go through sort of our rationale and reasons why we have chosen that bid. Under previous relevant experience, we understand that this team has vast experience, including 2 decades of work in Providence, both redrawing the ward and the voting precinct boundaries. And they have 40 years experience within the state. They have knowledge of the city data, its communities, and its voting precincts. As for references, we know that they did not publicly provide, Election Data Services did not publicly provide written references, so we were not able to review on that task. For the availability to work and ability to produce the previous stated tasks and documents within the time frame, there was an actual time frame detailed in the Election Data Services proposal. And this suggests to the subcommittee that they have a strong understanding of the time constraints that we are up against, given that the state is meeting later in this week to finalize the committee's decision for the state districts. And then those have to go to the full General Assembly, which likely won't be voted on until February, the beginning of February. And so we have a very tight timeline in order to get both our wards redrawn and our precincts redrawn before April. So we need someone to come in that's going to have a very strong understanding of the timeline and availability and ability to work within that timeline. Further, after our wards are redrawn, the next step is a precinct redrawing, which is the voting precincts. The written description of reprecincting by Election Data Services was very detailed. In my opinion, as someone who understands data and analysis work, very clear of all the tasks. The arc bridge description was lacking in detail. This suggests to us that they have that Election Data Services has a very clear understanding of what we need and how to do it, including putting people within precincts, including having the data and the ability to do that work, They understand the need for a straight file that is clean, that can go to the Secretary of State's office for ensuring that we have voters in the correct precinct for voting, ensuring people have the correct ballot. Finally, we know, as I mentioned before, that the statewide committee has approved that some people will be moved back to Providence from the Cranston census block. Having done that work, we feel that Election Data Services will have the superior data set and the ability to do this work, having this prior experience. That's important to us. One of the, in the ArcBridge RFP, we know that there are extra costs associated with extra data sets, and it's unclear to us if having this additional different data set would add additional cost to the ArcBridge proposal. That's of concern to the subcommittee. The next set of criteria was the knowledge of the city and its neighborhoods. And having done both the ward redrawing and the precincting work in the past 2 decades, it's clear to us that Election Data Services would have this understanding of the neighborhoods. And Councilwoman Harris, do you have anything to add there?
Yes. Yeah. Not only. I think in this go around, I think they totally understand that the community has to be engaged in the process. I believe just from prior experience, there was a lesson learned through this whole, I say the last election. I say that because I was a part of the group who were very disappointed in, the process and the way it was used. And I want to go back and say right now to the committee, I am so supportive of the directions that we decided to take, even though we started out very early, was the fact that Jessica created this transparency among all of us in our communities and inviting our council people to step up and also be a part of how we bring each of our constituents to the table, because we don't want anybody to feel left out, because it's very much a part of what space that they will be sharing in their neighborhoods. So everything you said, Jessica, I think before we even started the conversation and started to dig to look for that kind of stuff, like what is it that this would be a gain for us? We have very short deadline, like you said, from the very beginning, because at the end, we got about November, we have to have people have to know where those polls are. They're gonna have to know. And we don't have error for mistake. That's what I feel right now. I know I went around in circles of what I had to say, but however, I wanted to make it very clear that all that you said so far have been what we've been able to highlight. One more thing I want to bring up, I know you're probably going to get to it. For someone who has no experience in drawing maps, myself, it's very important that I understand the steps that's going to be taken. I don't like to be caught by surprise. One of the things that they were, and I know you're going to get into that, Jessica, was the detail of the sections and how they're going to take us through each section to get us to this timeline. For me, it's important for me to understand things beforehand. If I have to go and get that information, all of us in learning how to lead the community in helping with these maps. So yeah, I agree. Their experience brings a little bit more for us as far as the most qualified. Accessibility is something else that's very important for me, is to know that they're accessible to us in our communities. I'll stop right there.
So with that in mind, the next, thank you, Councilwoman. The next criteria was availability to meet with the committee and city officials at any time. There are a series of meetings that we'd like to host. And right now have the ability to have virtual, but that we might not have that throughout. And so we know that there are extra costs associated potentially with ArcBridge and bringing them here in person. And not that we need to do everything in person, but there might be instances where we have to do that. And so it might add extra cost to the bid that might bring it far closer to the higher bid.
And you're referring to ARC?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So then the next criteria that we had to consider was cost. And so we spent a lot of time talking about the cost effectiveness of each of these proposals. And again, the subcommittee found that Election Data Services had the more cost-effective bid. One thing that is not included in the ArcBridge initial proposal, but could be an additional cost of $5,000 would be a racially polarized database if we do not have the data in a specific format. But we won't know that specific format until after we award them the bid. So we have no way of knowing if it's going to cost us an extra $5,000 or not. So I'm wary of that, that extra cost. Additionally, we have only up to 3 bids, 3 map plans for ArcBridge, whereas we know that we do not have that cost associated with the EDS proposal. So for example, if we were to make several changes, it's not clear to us at what point it becomes a new plan, and then when that extra cost might come into play. So we would need to be very judicious with how we make changes and improvements, and think about when things go to the full council and how we would make that decision. And if things were to change when we went to the full council, we'd have to be careful about how many alternate plans we've already made and put forth.
Jessica, Councilman Espinal.
Yes, of course.
I believe Councilman Varga has a question. He's been raising his hand.
I'm sorry about that. I did not see that. Please.
Thank you.
Thank you. So you're talking about it's only $5,000 for the whole job, or are you thinking that would be $5,000 more?
No, it's so the ArcBridge proposal is $79,995 as a base.
80,000.
Yes, 80,000 essentially, but 79,995 to be exact. And then there are additional costs associated with certain aspects of it, and it's not clear to us that we wouldn't already need to add on those additional costs. So and again, these are assumptions, but I think they're educated assumptions about what we are working with and what we might get to. And so when we're talking about having to choose the lowest bidder or having to choose Election Data Services bid is $105,500. So it is $25,500 extra or additional is the cost difference. But as far as qualified, Councilwoman Harris and I agree that Election Data Services is the qualified bidder.
For the $80,000, is there any way that you can
No,
talk to them, have a frame, a window, like to be safe, and then because later on we're going to go back and forth, and then we're going to be wasting time, and
that's our concern. I believe that I don't know who was first, whether it was Councilman Miller or Nick Freeman. Councilwoman Miller, would you like to go first, please?
lost you. Sorry, I lost you for a moment.
I was just about to defer to Nick, but Yeah, I would just say, Councilman, so we've got these two proposals in front of us. I also got a chance to look over them, and I would agree that the one that's more money, the one that's like, what is it, election data services, it's 109 or I would agree that it's a much more robust proposal. I think there's a lot more in it and a lot less chance. Councilman, to your point, there's this thing that seems like maybe there's some hidden costs in this alternate proposal. So I think there's everything real laid out very clearly in the EDS proposal. And I think that like that even kind of calls the question of like, is that really the higher one, right? It's not totally clear to me with the costs that aren't in the alternate proposal. So just wanted to throw in my 2 cents there.
I agree.
Member Freeman?
Thanks. So I'm just lowering my hand. So I guess as I was reviewing these over the weekend, I really looked at it from 3 of the criteria that you were just listing off, Chairwoman. First, in terms of cost, I think I agree with everyone on here that yes, EDS comes in at $25,500 more, but there's certain, call them escalator costs in the Arc Bridge one that could end up making it just as costly, if not more. I would quickly say, given that we've been talking about this, I have their fees and pricing part of their bid in front of me. And even if they had to do the racial polarized database that the chairwoman mentioned, even if they had to do an extra plan and had to do 3 extra neighborhood meetings and 2 extra trips to 2 days each, it would still be cheaper than the EDS plan by about $3,500. So I just want to put that out there that yes, these escalator clauses could make it just as costly, but it would take quite a bit. I just want to throw that out there. So moving on from cost onto the proposal itself, I do think that the EDS one gets into some more detail, and in terms of technological capabilities and the details we'd expect to see in there, I defer to the expertise of our chairwoman, who has a lot more experience with that than I do. What I will just say in terms of some of the technical stuff, there's been so many advances in mapping and in computing power of doing this. I mean, I think most of us have more computing power in our pockets right now than any redistricting consultant did 10 or 20 years ago doing this type of stuff. So I'm a little hesitant to let that level of detail really swing us one way or the other, which then brings me to, which is I think is sort of the hard topic to bring up, but I do feel that I should bring it up, is EDS's their experience. While I heard the comments here that they've done Rhode Island's since 1980 and they've done Providence's since 2000, we need to acknowledge that there were many people who had many issues with those, and that nationally there's been national coverage of EDS describing them in not very positive terms in terms of how they have handled redistricting in many places, to the point where the Daily Show did a bit mocking some of the maps that they had drawn. Moving on from the comedy of it, I think there are many people who do not view EDS as necessarily the most positive actors. And you know, we heard some of this from Common Cause in one of our first meetings. We also, you know, then heard from Common Cause that part of the follow-up to this was the passing of reforms based on some of the negative things that happened during that 2010 cycle. So with all that in mind, it's just, I'm looking at the rest of these things, and I think that we can all agree on the merits of looking at these 2 proposals in front of us, that one is more detailed, the cost might be about the same. We have concerns about timeline, all those things, but it's very hard for me, knowing the experience of this community with EDS as their redistricting consultant 10 years ago, and in many other places where some of the things that we tried to pass reforms to prevent happened. It's very hard for me to then say I'm okay with, or I'm going to put my name on the dotted line saying that I want to bring it back. It's just a very difficult decision there, even with some of the other factors that have been brought up. So I went on for a while, and I'll stop now.
Does anyone on the committee want to respond to?
Yeah, I like to respond because Nick may, and quite a few people who have probably been around for a while, have been around, was a part of some of the things that happen in our area here in South Providence. In the South Providence area, there was a pushback, and definitely people were very, very, very upset, especially with the consultants, so much so that it made quite a bit of media. And the way it definitely rolled out, it definitely reflected for Black and brown people a racial content to it. That's why when we started this meeting from the very beginning, my voice was very clear and very loud about the fact that transparency and the fact that this committee itself will not be a part of any gerrymandering or redlining or any of that stuff that we do know has happened to many, many of these communities. And so I think that's why we started out with us ourselves trying to make sure that we take lead, that no one is leading this decision about our constituency except the people who have been chosen to be this ward boundary committee. I joined for that reason. It's no secret to why I'm on the committee. And the fact I'm on the committee is because of some of those things that Nick had brought up. Very clearly, that was a hard time for us in life, because when the people did show up, my last organizing, by the way, I was an organizer there. My last organizing that I did was organize people to come inside of the city hall, silently expressing themselves with signs. But in the paper the next day, the same people who had been traumatized by maps who were already bought and they had no idea what was going on in their neighborhoods, and that these lines were being drawn, these decisions were being made because for some reason, it did not seem important that the voices of those people be reflected. That was what happened. I was there. That was the most painful time in my life, to look in the paper and read that the people were being violent towards the council people. Was not that way. In fact, it was a attack and assault on the people that I now have the privilege of serving. And I am on that committee because I believe that we have to do this in a better way. The voices has to be reflected. People who are part of these neighborhoods need to feel a part of their neighborhoods and a part of something and empowered by it. And I believe this committee is leading us in that direction. We have council people that's on this meeting tonight have taken time to try to figure out, how do we engage? That was not happening before. And I'm just being honest from what I know. That's my truth, and that's my humble opinion. Nick, I understand what you're saying, but I also know that if there was no lesson learned from these people, I don't think there is ever a lesson that ever will be learned from what they received from the people, the constituents, and the people who felt slighted in all of this, right? It was a horrible time. And I gotta say, I got pictures, I still got documentation of that. I will find that media article because I do have it. And just to reflect on it. As a committee, we have to be the one that drives this. I didn't get on it to be led by any direction that is not going to empower our people in our neighborhoods. So that's just what I feel. I feel like this, Nick, I understand what you're saying. They got a nasty disposition about them, if that's not only here, because they were, when I was in that meeting, they were being defensive. They were feeling defensive, like they had to come back. They were, instead of explaining to the people, look, the engagement process, this didn't go right. It wasn't right. It wasn't handled. It wasn't done right. I'm gonna leave it at that because, I did get in a deep conversation about Jessica because she did stir up some old memories. And again, that's why I'm on the committee. I don't know how to draw the maps as well. And I don't know, like Nick said, we have a great leader here. Jessica have heard, she's understood, and she's engaging and pushing us forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for those remarks, Councilman. Member Freeman.
Thank you. No, I I have a lot of respect for the councilman. I enjoyed working with you in the council, and your points are very well taken. And no doubt you were a big part of that 10 years ago. And some of the reforms that we've been talking about here to make sure some of the things that happened 10 years ago don't happen again wouldn't have happened without you, councilman. When I hear the comment though that if they haven't learned their lesson, then they're never going to learn their lesson. I can only say, well, I really hope that they've learned their lesson on this, but I'm very hesitant and very reluctant to put my trust there. And I guess my mind goes to fool me once, shame on you; fool me twice, shame on me. And I would really, really not like to be in that spot at the end of this, feeling that it was shame on me.
Well respected. Point taken.
Okay.
Jessica,
Yes, Councilman.
how many constituent each ward has to have, or which is the number?
So the current census data puts us at just a little bit under 13,000 people per ward.
13,000 people per ward.
Yeah, so one of the criteria for redistricting is that we have as equal as possible representation for people in each ward. So what we will see, no matter who does our redrawing, because population grew in Providence by 40,000 people and population has shifted in different areas, what happens is when a ward's population grows, the ward boundary shrinks, right? When an area's population grows, the ward boundary shrinks. And then conversely, when the population in an area declines, then the ward needs to get bigger to accommodate, make sure that those 13,000 people roughly are in it. And so we will see ward boundaries changing because we did have population growth in some areas and population decline in some areas. And we haven't discussed that as a committee, and we haven't looked at how that would happen yet. We've been waiting for our consultant to do that. But I've looked sort of first blush at the data, and that's what it's telling me.
So the data is telling you that these constituents are the voters ratio, or is anyone who lives in the neighborhood?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
How the data is telling you that we have 13 people in the ward?
So the way that works is you take this total city population and you divide it by the 15 wards. And when you do that division, because essentially you want equality across all wards. And so when you divide that, the city population, which is 190 or so, 90,000 or so, I don't remember off the top of my head right now what that number is. That gets you till roughly 13,000 per ward. And so right now, I believe the wards are a little under 12,000 per person from the last time, from a decade ago. And so then we need to make the shifts in order to get to that. And the way that's decided is by using census blocks, which are the official sort of smallest unit of data across the city. And then you bring blocks together that would get us to roughly 13,000 per ward.
In the 13,000, you including U.S. citizens, person with green cards, person with permits, and person with nothing. How they do that?
It's so I'll say that it's based on census data, and any person, be them children or adults, people of any citizenship status or not, we count people where they live on April 1st, 2020 in the city of Providence.
Okay.
We do not know their status.
So we only know that it's a person living there.
As of April 1st, 2020. And it's aggregated to a census block. So we don't know where a singular person is. We know a group of people in a census block.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Yes, Councilor Miller has her hand raised, and also Councilman Espinal.
Councilor Miller. You're on mute, Councilman.
Sure am. Thank you, Chair. I'm like, we're back here to the Zoom. Thank you, Chairwoman. And to Nick's point, I just want to say I've got no particular love for this company for many of the reasons that you shared, Nick. I think I have never obviously been on this side of this process. And so as much as I think that the consultant, certainly matters a lot in that they need to be competent, they need to be able to actually source and look at the data. I also think there's a lot of political motivation that goes on, either in front of or behind closed doors in or has gone on in redistricting processes. And I think one of the things that I'm bringing to this process, and one of the reasons I'm willing to defer to the expertise of Chairwoman Signa and Deputy Majority Leader is that piece, right? That I think that we sitting at this table have a fair amount of power and a fair commitment to work with integrity through this. And so again, I don't think I'm particularly naive, but I am bringing that, right? The political layer on this is us. And I believe that we have made a commitment to integrity throughout this process.
Councilman Espinal.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Just going back to the population growth. So is it safe to say that our city population grew by about 15,000 people? Because you stated earlier about 40,000.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I apologize. 40,000 statewide. Yep, you're right. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Just want to get that straight because we were about 179. So I think
now we're 190. That's right. I am very sorry. Very sorry. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for clarifying. I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Member Freeman.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just quickly, I certainly didn't mean to imply naivete or anything like that on behalf of anyone on this committee. That wasn't my intent at all. I just, I have concerns, and especially since we're talking about trying to be as transparent and operate with as much integrity as possible. And I think that this group really has done that. Part of my concern is whether we will lose some of the hard-earned trust that we've gained from the public by saying we're going to be so above board with these things, if then the consultant we bring back is one as notorious as we've discussed. I'll also say that the other three people on this call have all said that they seem pretty positive, and I'm the only one not. So I don't want to belabor this, but I didn't mean to imply naivete or anything else on behalf of anyone here. I'm just expressing that position. But if it seems like it's 3-1 here, then there's no need to beleaguer this. If we want to move to a motion, that's fine.
Thank you, Member Freeman. Councilman Miller.
Yeah, for the record, I think I was saying that I could see that they're being, I didn't think you were name calling at all. And again, I do think there are serious concerns with EDS. I think that there's concerns in this process overall. regardless of who the consultant is. And I think there's just a requirement that we stand to a high standard, both in analyzing the data and in what is presented to the community and how it's presented. I think that's true no matter who the consultant is. That's all.
I appreciate everyone's attention to detail here and really bringing in the history and thinking about how this will really affect us as a committee and how it affects the community. I certainly don't take this decision lightly. And I, Member Freeman, I did not think you were calling any of us naive. I do see it as a challenge and definitely something that might shine a light in a way that we might not anticipate or like, and that weighs with me. So when I made my decision, I definitely was taking that into concern. I do think, as Councilman Miller has stated, that that it does stop with us, and that we really have to. We say we're going to be transparent, and it's really about us. And I wasn't a part of the process in the past, so I understand and I know that you have that history, and that's important to me, certainly. So I don't know enough to weigh where blame might go, I guess, is probably a poor choice of words. But I think in my discussions with Councilman Harris and reading these two, weighing them, I just think that even all of that, the EDS proposal outweighs that. And I think it's on me as chairperson to ensure that we have a better process this time, and to ensure that that doesn't happen again, and to try to build back that trust and faith in the community. And I really hope that we can do that no matter who we ultimately wind up with. I really want to do that. That's my ultimate goal here. Yes.
I would like to say that this is election data service is the most qualified. They're the most qualified consultants for us to get the job done at the time frame that we have to get it done. I also say that election data service is also accessible and will be accessible to the community and to what we also need to be doing. I want to thank this committee because, yes, I think we have been very much transparent, and I want to appreciate, us and even having our honest feelings of where we are and our passion towards our different portions of the city, and I want to appreciate that. So with that being said, I'd like to make a motion that we hire election data service as a consultant for the ward boundary committee's job to move forward in mapping these different districts.
Madam Clerk, I don't know if the solicitor is on. I don't know if the wording of the motion has to be to recommend.
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 Hiring.
Okay, I will use the term recommend. One way or the other, I put a motion on the floor to recommend election service as our consultant.
Do we have a second for that motion?
I second it.
Councilman, I'm sorry, you're not.
I don't remember, right? Oh, I'm
No.
sorry. Where's Espinal? Espinal.
We're like, no, it's just
Members.
Councilwoman Harris and Miller. Yes, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilwoman Miller.
Yeah, I will second this motion again, in deference to the chair. I do, again, I do share, I don't think it's a perfect choice. I do think it puts a fair amount of pressure and onus on us to do our jobs, carefully and well.
Madam Clerk, do we need a roll call vote or do we just vote?
You can do it either way, Madam Chair.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Any abstention? Did we have 3 ayes, Madam Clerk?
Yes, we did.
The motion passes 3-1 with 1 absence. Yes. Thank you all. Any final thoughts there? Hearing none. Okay. The next meeting agenda item is a discussion relative to the values document and how we will work it together and engage with a consultant. We've already spent some time talking about this just in our prior meeting point, but I'd like to say that this is where I think we hold a lot of the power. And so we have discussed prior in other meetings that we would like to be as transparent as possible, that we would like to have a lot of things be very public in this process. And so one of the things that I would like to add to this, to our values document, to help us finalize it, is that when we are working with this consultant and when this consultant is working with us and other people in the process, that we are a member of the committee is present, perhaps myself, that we keep a log of all of the meetings that we have with the consultant, and a log of the consultant's process and of who they're meeting with outside of the committee, if that is to happen. I think that's really important and critical to ensuring that we're transparent and we understand what's happening. I understand that that is a large ask of us as a committee, but it's something that I feel very strongly that we include in that values document. I think we can have a really transparent and really transform the process from the last time to this time. I think that's one way we do it. Does anyone have any thoughts on that? I know, Nick, you seem enthused. I just want to.
Yeah, thank you, Chairwoman. I would definitely say that the idea of eliminating, or at the very least avoiding, one-on-one meetings with current elected officials or potential elected officials and the consultant is something that we should be doing. Those types of meetings create an appearance of impropriety at the very least, which, again, if we're talking about the hard-earned trust this committee has tried to build with the community, that would undermine it. More than that, I think that those types of meetings create, by their very nature, an inability to ensure that the charter reforms that instituted in the last 10 years and other things are actually being followed. because there's no one there. There's no eyes on anything. And then a last point I would make, as you know, I have my time in City Hall, my time working in various public bodies and things, I always have the Open Meetings Act in mind. And I would simply say that those types of meetings would, to me, seem to violate the spirit of the Open Meetings Act, if not the actual letter of the law, by functionally creating a rolling quorum for the final council meeting that would have to approve whatever map is to be approved. So for those reasons, I would say that avoiding those types of one-on-one meetings is a high priority and should be something that this group agrees to. Good idea.
Yeah. An additional thought I had around this process was to, you know, we've talked a lot about having those first few public meetings be just that, where we're sort of gathering information and gathering data from the community, including communities of interest and what is really important. So when I've been going out and talking with folks in the community about wanting them to participate, I've said, you know, tell us what your communities of interest are. And you can do that in a number of ways. You can draw it on a map and draw it on the back of a napkin. You can email us or tell us. And so I want our consultant to hear those first prior to drawing those maps. I have attended the statewide meetings, and I know that it's been discussed that all communities of interest presented at the statewide level were considered when making the statewide maps. So I know that the consultant we just voted on has an experience of understanding and learning from what the community has. And so I want us to gather all of that information and then have the consultant draw the maps with all of those, as much as all of that in mind. So we are not being reactive. Again, the community is not being reactive, community is being proactive. So again, that's on the committee to do it that way.
Jessica, I have to say that, Mary, I have to say that makes a lot of sense. That alone will give a little more trust than, you know, the maps itself being done, and also as Nick described it, as transparent as possible. Just knowing that we are working also with some very intelligent council people who are, you know, very much aware of the fact that what happened before too, and does not want to see it happen in their community. So as much as we can be as transparent, I do know that we are getting our website together, as much as whatever the consultant is moving throughout the community, and we can share it on our website. I think that would be another way too, to make sure that information is constantly being shared where people are, you know, have access to it. We talked about the libraries and how the libraries would serve a purpose. I mean, I think there's a lot that we have to do to build back that trust that Nick talked about have been lost by so many people. But excuse me, I believe in this committee. I mean, just when we first got together, I just felt good about being a part of this particular directions that we're going in. So yeah, it's a lot that we need to try to figure out exactly how do we share as much information from what the consultant brings in immediately to our constituency would be helpful. Thank you.
There's a lot that we have to juggle when we're drawing these lines. We have 6 criteria in our, as Member Freeman has alluded to, the charter now has 6 criteria that we have to follow, which really help us get to a more transparent, better process. And so that's what the values document is based on. And so one of those criteria is that we do not consider the residence of current council people or political candidates. And I just want to make it clear that that was actually listed in EDS's proposal, that they're prepared to do that. And it actually was not listed in ArcBridge's proposal. So that is one of the pieces that we also considered when doing this. And I think that these meetings, these one-on-one meetings, without any sort of oversight on them, if we can have logs and have, not have that happen, there's less of a chance to have the air of that happening, as has been discussed at the state level. And so I want to be clear that we have to abide by those criteria. And so that's one way to get at that particular level of criteria. Member Freeman, do you have a comment about that? All right, any other discussion about the values document at all? I will add what we've talked about to that document. Oh, I see I have another hand raised. Is that right? Oh, okay. Did I miss someone? No, I think, okay. Great, okay, so moving on to discussion relative to forthcoming committee meetings and dates. I apologize, I did not attach the document to this. It was a draft document, sort of hypothetically thinking when we sort of put all the pieces together. So I'm just going to, and based on when we were making this decision this evening, sort of a lot of things roll out from that. So I need to find this document in my email. Where did I put it? I seem to have closed it. Oh, no. I apologize. So I'll just get started and hopefully I can find this. Here we go. So based on our recommendation tonight, we actually have to wait until the 31st. Yvonne, is that right? Or is it the 30th? To present to the Board of Contract and Supply. Is Yvonne still here?
Is the 30th Monday? Sorry, I don't have the calendar for that.
Yeah, it's okay.
Hold on a second. 31st.
Okay, so just based on timing, we have to wait until then to present this contract to the Board of Contract and Supply. Then they will vote. And then there's a series of dates that we need to get to the Providence Journal and to get hearings to them. So I believe Wednesday, the 19th, so in the morning. So we need to have something situated before then. We can have a few public hearings scheduled. We're thinking that we're thinking that we might have another meeting on the 24th of just us, this type of meeting. And then the first public hearing, place to be determined, would be the 7th, it's a Monday. Then the second meeting would be the 14th.
I'm sorry, what month are we talking about now?
February. Sorry. Yes. Quick. So February 7th would be the first, potentially would be the first public meeting, public hearing for the boundaries. The February 14th, which is Valentine's Day, which we might need to change that. I don't know. It's not an official holiday. Would be, we could have candy hearts, perhaps. Would be the second meeting, and it would be a place to be determined. we could even bill it as a love of data. I know that I would definitely be there. The third meeting, we are considering February 22nd, and the fourth meeting, February 28th. I am definitely open to having more meetings, but we would need to think about advertising and how that would work. So we would probably need to make those decisions sooner. And I defer to Madam Clerk and Yvonne for guidance on that. Given those 4 meetings, the agenda for our, per the city charter, we need to decide by March 2nd an agenda for the ward boundaries meeting to be held, to go to the full council for approval. So we're thinking March 10th, so 2 months from now, that there would be a special city council meeting to schedule the council public hearings ordinances. And then we're thinking that might happen, those meetings might happen March 28th, and then April 7th, and then April 21st. So very tight timelines. And in the interim, a couple of these meetings, again, to be public and transparent, our committee meeting to make decisions and discussion about the different maps, who's engaging with the committee, engaging with communities of interest, or information about communities of interest, et cetera. Member Freeman?
Just a point of clarification. So when we're talking about the 4 public meetings, just given the COVID situation, everything, are we thinking those are going to be virtual meetings? Are we thinking we're going to try to actually do those out in the neighborhoods? Early in this process, we had discussed not having the hearings just in City Hall, but have one in Silver Lake, one in Olneyville, one in the South Side, one in the North End. I'm not sure where we're thinking.
So it's my understanding that the virtual meeting is only through February, the beginning of February. And I am also in favor of having in-person public meetings if we can do that safely. And I'd love to figure out how we can do those safely. I know that Councilwoman Harris and I were discussing trying to be in her district and be at a school. So yes, I think we need to, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to chat with you all this evening about this, because this is what we need to think about locations and think about how we can get out into the neighborhoods and get people there soon, which is why we have to sort of have the advertisements, have locations, things need to happen soon. Councilwoman Miller, I saw that you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I would just echo that. I mean, I think even if we can still have Zoom meetings, if it gets, unfortunately, right, if we're in a situation where the order gets extended, I would advocate very strongly that we figure out some in-person and Zoom, so that there's lots of ways for people to participate. Because I don't think Zoom has been, I think Zoom has been more accessible for a subset of people and a lot less accessible for a lot of people.
I agree. It's been great to have more people participate in one way, but it really does exclude folks, which is why as a whole committee, we've discussed not only people sort of sending maps via email or through apps, but, back of hand drawings, and which is why I really am interested in engaging the library, because I think we could have a stack of maps in a box and have people sort of draw their community of interest or what they think is important in their neighborhood and pop it in a box. And I would love to have sort of host smaller community events where we have a map drawings, whether it's just paper maps on the table or whether there's computers and we show people how to draw communities of interest on that. And then, yes, how we have in-person meetings where people can come up and talk to us and explain to us what's important to them. I think that's really important. Yvonne and Madam Clerk, I know that you were working on some places in the community. Do we have any further information about that?
I don't currently have some information. I know that usually the last public hearing out of the 4 is held here at City Hall, and we're still working out various locations throughout the city, some community centers and schools, but we haven't nailed anything down specifically yet.
Okay.
I believe Councilwoman Harris had suggested PCTA as the location for one of the meetings, which seems like a very good location. They have a good sized auditorium and space. We can work with the committee on other locations and ideas, and we just have to get those all in for the advertisement date, which is whenever the clerk says it is.
Thank you. Okay, I see Councilwoman Anthony has her hands raised. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you very much, Chairwoman Signa, for all your work in the committee. Thank you so much for everything. It's a great discussion tonight. Is there any reason we can't have more public hearings than are requested? Is it a set number, or can we have more than set?
We are able to have, we have to have at least 4. I think the committee has always said at least. I think we're just, I think it would just be down to making sure that we schedule it in advance if we are going to do it. So that's the time constraint is advertising.
So the only thing I'll say is that I hope we can have one on the east side, and I'd be happy to discuss locations or try to find where the best spot would be for that. Maybe I should be talking to Tina, the clerk.
Yes,
Tina, I'll call you.
Please call me. We'll discuss. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you. All right.
Perhaps we can, as a committee, we can discuss areas that we want to target for where folks would like to be. Councilman Miller, I think you were next.
No, Nick was definitely next this time.
Oh, sorry about that. I'm sorry, Member Freeman.
No worries. Thank you. I feel like I've done too much talking this meeting. No, if I'm remembering correctly from 10 years ago, the last one was definitely in City Hall. I know there was one on Plainfield Street, the rec center over there. I believe there was one at the Rochambeau Branch Library on Hope Street. And I know there was another one, but I'm blanking on where it was. With regard to what
it was at Met School.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Great. Yeah. I would say that the PCTA recommendation is a good one for all the reasons that were mentioned before, and also because it's easily accessible in many bus lines. So that should be a factor that we should think about. Yeah. So I mean, I'm sure we all have many different places that can host things that we can think of, but just trying to think through institutional knowledge, how it was done 10 years ago and where some good places might be today.
And I would just say, thank you, Chairwoman, that maybe, are we meeting on next Monday? Is that the plan for this committee to meet as a body next Monday?
We are scheduled to have a meeting on the 24th. So, okay. but I would be happy to meet again next Monday.
So I would just say, like, whether it's, and maybe we don't have to do it collectively here at this meeting, but I think there's reason to think through maybe even like 6 meetings because of COVID, because I think we're going to commit to doing one on Zoom when we're still legally allowed to, because I think that does, again, there's some people who don't want to be in a room right now, and I respect and appreciate that. But then also, like, let's have smaller but more meetings so that we can be safe, so that we can engage people but not pack a room, which I still think in February will be a bad idea, you know? So I don't know if, you know, I would be very happy to take on like some of the work of like finding a place or helping with these extra ones, but I would be pretty excited to say, like, let's plan to have to announce 6 of these.
Okay. Would you be willing to serve on a subcommittee with me to officially do that? Great. Okay.
Madam Chair, can I just clarify, next Monday is the 17th, which is a holiday. We are scheduled to meet on the 24th.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate that. I did not know that was a holiday. Okay. That gets us to the end of our agenda. I want to thank everyone for staying on with me and present through this process. I really appreciate everybody's input. I believe we have room for public comments. And do we have anyone from the public who would like to speak?
So there is currently right now one hand up. So if anyone else would like to speak, please just use your raise hand icon and then I'll call on you to speak. So the first one I'm allowing to speak is Doug Victor. Doug, I'm just asking you to unmute yourself and please state your name and address for the record.
I will. Thank you very much. My name is Doug Victor, and my address is 103 Princeton Avenue in Providence in the Elmwood neighborhood. I just want to thank you all for being part of this committee. This is a big job, and I just feel that you are all taking it as seriously as it needs to be taken. I wonder with the public meetings if there could be a hybrid aspect of these public meetings so that people could attend in person or they could attend virtually. And I know that with each model, there's a problem, but maybe if the models are put together, it sort of narrows the bandwidth of those problems. Anyways, thank you so much for considering this question.
Thank you, Doug, for being here and for that, that proposal. Does anyone else from the community have a question or a comment?
Yes, I have Steve Uprise. Steve, I'm just going to ask you to state your name for the record and your address.
Sure. My name is Steve Alquist. I live at 126 Ogden Street in Providence. My question is if the document, the values document, will be made public today or tomorrow so that I could get my hands on it. I'd like to bring it to the redistricting meeting at the State House on Wednesday.
Thank you, Steve, for your question. It is currently public. It was a part of a previous meeting. It was a draft of it. It was part of a previous meeting. And I apologize for not having that document here this evening. That's my fault for not asking for it to be attached. I can, and we can certainly get you a copy of that draft. Is that okay with the committee? And Councilman Miller, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, I was just going to ask the chairwoman and Madam Clerk, can we make that available as part of the meeting agenda after the fact? Can we make this document? Okay.
So if, Madam Chair, if you send that to me, we can add that to the portal tomorrow morning.
Great.
That would be perfect. Thank you.
I really appreciate the question, Steve. So although it will be available tomorrow morning, if you're feeling industrious, I believe it is on a previous meeting.
I'll see what I can do. Thank you.
There's anyone from the public that would like to speak, please use your raise hand icon. Anyone else?
And I just want to say thank you to the public for joining us tonight. This is great. As we've said time and time again throughout this meeting, that we're very much interested in hearing from the public and getting questions and comments. As you can tell, we take this very seriously, and so thank you for being here. It's really important to us.
No one else from the public has raised their hand, just Councilman Vargas.
Okay, Councilman Vargas?
Yes, I got a question for you. Who's in charge of the advertisement? The company will be in charge, or the city hall, or us?
That would be me.
Okay, which sources are you going to use?
We use the Providence Journal.
Okay, the Latino community doesn't read the journal. Sorry.
Okay, that's something that we can definitely discuss and try to accommodate that as well.
The best way to advertise will be through radio waves and through the internet. But especially that's why the Latino community get behind, because every advertisement goes through the journal, and sadly they don't read it. Sorry. So we can use for different ways to do it. That will be a great idea to do, and I hope the chairwoman will take this into consideration. Also, Mary Kay and Councilwoman Miller.
Absolutely, and I'll work with the
the
council office on some social media for that.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Miller?
Yeah, Councilman, you read my mind when the chairwoman suggested a little subcommittee for the meetings. I was like, oh, good, we could talk about. So there's two things, right? There's like that we are legally required to post in the Projo. However, current, up to date, that requirement may be or not. But then we can do all this other stuff. And so I think we should work with the council office and work together just to make sure that we're getting this announcement out pretty broadly through the radio, like you were saying, through other written press, through internet stuff. So you read my mind on that.
Thank you so much for this conversation, and Councilman Vargas for suggesting that. I think it's really important. I might conscript you to do a radio spot for me for us.
I'll be glad to do it. I don't mind. It's everything to do for the community. I am here.
Great.
So, thank you.
You will be hearing from the subcommittee.
All right. Thank you very much.
Putting everyone to work.
Oh, great.
Do we have anyone else who'd like to have a comment or ask a question? I know we've gone an hour and a half, and I really appreciate everyone's time. If we don't hear anything else, I'd like to have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you. And especially, I want to especially say thank you to the clerk's office staff and the council staff. We really appreciate all your hard work. Thank you so much.
We do. Thank you, Nick, for saying that. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.